Panelists, you may now come off mute and begin today's webinar.
Thanks, Lizzie. Happy Pi Day. Oh, wait a minute. That was Tuesday. For any of you hangdog dads that were in line searching for a pie on Tuesday, I feel your pain. Happy 316 Day, the day we celebrate fiduciary responsibility and probably one of the more overlooked elements of the qualified plan space, and that's administrative fiduciary governance. My name is Matt Mincer. I am an Executive Vice President here at Pentegra, and on behalf of my colleague, John D'Agostino, we welcome you to this PENTalk regarding 316 in administration. We're thrilled to have with us Jonathan Fredman, Retirement Plan Consultant, Managing Director of Investments from Marsh McLennan Agency. And I want to just say right up front, we apologize. There were some emails that went out that might have referenced another Marsh McLennan part of the organization, Mercer. Jonathan is not affiliated at all with Mercer. Jonathan is part of Marsh McLennan Agency. So first, a big thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time today. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Looking forward to the conversation this morning.
And I know we're going to talk about some of the case study work that you did, but maybe you could just kind of clip it for us here in the beginning, some of the things that you found in your case study and what that was about, and we can go maybe into more detail at the end.
Sorry about that. I was on mute for a second. Yeah, thanks, Matt. So, with the whole topic of, the administrative work with the retirement plans, I think a lot of this just came down to what we're seeing on, the market space when it comes to, the stretched HR teams, the limited, finance and HR ability that they have to administer retirement plans, just the offloaded liability, and, kind of a lot of what the discussion around the whole idea of 316, and I'm sure we'll get into this more today, is just the education we still have as an industry ahead when it comes to communicating 316, what that actually means, and what the benefits are to consumers. Because it's one of those, I've been preaching it for quite a while and still kind of an uphill climb with, explaining the value to clients. So looking forward to continuing the conversation today.
Thanks, Jonathan. And as you're probably not surprised, we hear this from a lot of our clients, be they advisor or sponsor clients. And is it a thing? What is it? Is it the same? Doesn't so-and-so do it? There is definitely a lot of confusion and therefore a lot of opportunity here to help clear the air for plan sponsors and certainly the committees that run the plan and are holding fiduciary responsibility. So perfect place to start. You're 15-year pro at this. You've been doing it a long time, seen it from every level, including getting down in the weeds from an administrative standpoint. Where are you spending your time, if you could kind of broadly say with all the clients that you serve on the administrative side, and like what kind of things do you get into that maybe you'd rather not be doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, Matt, and maybe this is something with our service model where we like diving in pretty deep to help handhold on the retirement side, just because we know from our point of view that there can be a lot of problems that arise, and if you're not addressing them early on, it can be a nasty surprise come year end. So there can just be numerous items we're diving in on where one thing we often see, Matt, is, organizations, they just assume that because they're doing things on their medical plan side, there's a lot more focus there that, yeah, we have definition. Part-time employees obviously aren't included on our 401k because we're not including them on the medical side. Well, if you didn't update your document to reflect that on the 401k, you have a problem. Definition of compensation, another big one where certain exclusions with other benefits. And I get it from point of view of a plan sponsor, you have one benefits package, 401k happens to be a part of that, but trying to communicate to, our business owners and teams running it that no, this is separate benefit, separate rules, maybe need to have some more I's dotted and T's crossed on the 401k compared to your other benefits. And we're also just in the weeds a lot with here's issues with the payroll feeds coming over. What impact does that have? And then I think, Matt, some of the things that also concern us is sometimes if we don't hear from a group for a while and things appear to be running smooth, that also raises red flags because sometimes it's running too smooth. And then we need to do a check-in to say, maybe something's awry here because I've yet to find a retirement plan that runs perfectly well. So amount of time we spend, pretty exhaustive.
Yeah, and so you just rattled off a lot of things that if they go bump in the night can really have pretty big repercussions downstream from an administrative standpoint. And a question we love, and we don't ever want to put advisors on the spot, but just as part of this discussion to kind of make a kind of picture for everyone in their mind, when you think of your clients, how many of them have outsourced investment fiduciary work, be it 338 as a discretionary discretionary fiduciary or 321? They're rough numbers. What do you think it is?
Yeah, Matt, we're probably looking about 99% of our client base outsources on the investments. It's honestly only just some non-ERISA plans where it's not necessary. So definitely pretty much everyone.
So that's a pretty much statistically significant count, 99%. And then flipping the script to the administrative fiduciary, the work that you should describe that, getting in the weeds and what's involved. What percentage of your plan have outsourced administrative burdens to a professional independent fiduciary?
Well, Matt, I'm going to give you this number, and maybe you're going to rethink if you wanted me on the panel. So we talk a lot about the 316 side, but when I think what percentage of our group has like full 316 offload, it's probably in that 5 to 10% range. 10% definitely on the high end.
Yeah, we say that for impact because, and we ask this question all the time of our advisor clients and sponsor clients, and the number is always low. And therefore, there's a great opportunity. I mean, you're hired as their trusted fiduciary, their trusted partner, their trusted counsel, trusted advisor. And what we're hearing when those who bring the conversation forward is how much, one, the sponsor didn't know they had that liability or responsibility and how much they want to offload it. So, it's another feather in the cap for the great services that you provide. Let me flip that over to John D'Agostino, because I know you lead with this question a lot. What are you hearing from our other clients, be they advisors, be they sponsors, the combination, our record-keeping partners that we work with? What are you hearing as it relates to the take rate for 316, maybe confusion or misunderstanding? And as Jonathan alluded to, not all 316s are created equal.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Jonathan, I appreciate your sentiment here. Jonathan and I go way back, and we've had a variety of discussions over the years as different best practices have come to market. I remember having a conversation around target date funds, when they first were launched, some time ago, and there was a lot of misconceptions around them at the time. Does a 2020 fund from company A act similarly to a 2020 fund from company B? And back then there was a lot of confusion around a simple question like that. Today we know, of course, that there are many changes, many differences between the allocations, underlying investments, and what have you. And 316s, are no different. And if you think back, just a short time ago, 5 years, 10 years, the take rate on the investment fiduciary, which Jonathan alluded to the fact that that's pretty high today, was nowhere near that a decade ago. So it's my perspective that having every fiduciary seat at the table is important, but we are in a period of education. And I think that many of the advisors and sponsors that I work with see value in adding something that's going to save them time, right? And get them out of the way of perhaps tedious duties and most importantly, protect them, right? So, Matt, I think it's time, perhaps to see what the group thinks here. Most of the folks I
Yeah.
talk to, if you ask them a basic question around investments in fiduciary and say, you got an investment fiduciary, you don't have an administrative fiduciary, where are you spending more of your time? You get more questions on the investments on a weekly basis, or you get more questions on the admin? And from my perspective, it's almost entirely admin.
Well, why don't we tee up that polling question and see what our audience thinks? Even though we hear it a lot, we've got some responders here to see how much time are you typically spending each week on retirement plan administrative issues? Select one of the following: none, 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 5 or more. Please just click away on your screen or on your phone, and we'll give it a couple of seconds to get the count in. See, like about 3% have voted, so come on, 97%. Let's give it a shot. What do you think you spend? And time is money, right? And then that's a cliche, but it's true. And boy, when I think where I want to spend my time, that has real significance. And I think that's true for everybody. No offense to administration, for us geeky folks that live in it, that it can be word salad, very difficult to understand. And I know in dealing with plan sponsors historically, just how tedious it can be, and they need that help. And even with our advisors who, grew up more with investment heavy and knowledgeable about the importance of return outcomes for clients, getting in the weeds of ERISA is art and science. So I see about, I'll give you a couple more seconds for those 57% that haven't voted. Go ahead, click away, and then we can see what our audience feels about how much time are you typically spending each week on retirement plan administrative issues. So it's about a minute and a half. If we can take a look at the poll and see what we got. 5 hours or more, 2 hours or more, 1 hour. So it's a high percentage of folks that are spending more than zero time on this. Not surprising. Any quick reactions to that, Jonathan? Does that look like your layout of time, or how would you delta that?
Yeah, I would say, Matt, kind of looking at that, we're not seeing as many people on the none or 1 to 2 hours. So this data here that, 2 to 4, and then definitely big chunk at 5 or more, I think that's pretty accurate as well. We're probably more in the camp. The time we spend with our clients, we're definitely in the 5 or more. So not surprising with those poll results. And I think we flipped that on. Oh, sorry. I think you flipped that on the head on the investment piece. If you had that same poll, how much time are you spending on investment related? I think our result probably be about 100% none.
Right. Because it's all, you guys have done such a great job. These plans are running so much more smoothly. The QDIA made a huge difference in the investment structure and outcome for plan sponsors and their participants. So a similar opportunity exists here. And everybody's busy, and I'll ask you a follow-up question in a minute about where you'd rather spend your time. But we did a national poll on this question as well. I think we have that teed up, John. If you can bring that, and similarly, we didn't find a lot of folks that were spending no time. We found more people, 40 to from 1 to 5 hours or more was the bulk of time. So this is consistent. Plans are complex. They take time. So, Jonathan, back to you on that follow-up question. So if you had those extra hours, how would you spend them?
Yeah, I mean, just on our end alone, if we had the time just from the advisory side, it'd be working on a lot more strategic conversations with plans. Not that we're not doing that already, but I think there's only so much bandwidth our clients have to discuss 401k. We know for a lot of them that's a small part of what they do, so it's trying to limit time. And any amount of time we can free up on our HR finance team partner side allows us to say, let's pivot into let's talking about employee engagement, spending more time on plan benchmarking. So you get bang for the buck on your plan design. That's where it allows a lot more of those strategic conversations, because it can definitely be one of those where you just get bogged down in the weeds, and it can kind of feel like a never-ending cycle at certain times when you're dealing with problems.
So if 316 and fiduciary outsourcing from an administrative standpoint is time-consuming, why do you think there is this, such a big difference between adoption of investment fiduciaries and adoption of administrative fiduciaries? We talked about learning and lessons, but what are the things our sponsors facing that you think is a resistance point, or in the way of making a decision to outsource this like they have from an investment standpoint?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just education, and retirements are slow moving machines. So it's one of those, if we rewound 15 years ago, the percentage of clients we had who were an investment fiduciary on, that was less than 5%. So that's changed a lot over 15 years. Specifically on the 316, I'd point to a couple of things. First is the assumption, which I think there's a lot of merit to this assumption if you're a plan sponsor, that I already have a record keeper, advisor, maybe a third-party administrator. They should be doing these things. So I think the assumption is that they already have a 316 administrator. And then second piece is, and this is kind of a communication issue that the industry has created, I'll get on my soapbox for a second, is the levels of 316 offload, where every provider can say, we are helping with 316 tasks, but when we're diving in with our clients, there's a big difference between taking on the liability, being the named plan administrator, and really offloading. It's a big difference between sending some notices on behalf of a client and actually taking on the liability and running the plan. That's the distinction there. That's just going to take time. And it's also, final thing is, we're throwing out a lot of these buzzwords. So 316, 321, 338, our clients aren't living with those words. So it's trying to explain this in more detail and say, okay, why am I paying more for something that I think I'm getting already? It just takes time.
Great. And I think we have another polling question here, John, if you can pull that up to ask our audiences the same question. What do you think is holding your clients back today? Why is 316 not what 338 or 321 is in their minds? And select the best one that you think fits. You're mentioning as the people are answering questions, the polling's taking place, Jonathan, that all 316s aren't the same. And we kiddingly say, who knew that the service agreement would be the defining document or marketing collateral in our discussions with plan sponsors? It's easy to say you're a 316. It's really a big deal to actually be the named fiduciary partner from an administrative standpoint. So yeah, the service agreement is the tell, and we've seen a lot of out clauses as it relates to who's really on the hook for the outcome of the administrative burdens of the plan. I'm trying to see here how many folks we have. We got 31%. Can we get a couple more folks if you want to cast your thoughts? This won't go on your permanent record. There is no wrong answer. My attempt at polling activities. I'll keep my joke short today. So that's about a minute and a half. Why don't we take a look at the poll and see what our audience felt about the same question. If your clients are not currently utilizing a 316 fiduciary outsourcing, what's holding them back? So My clients don't know what a 316 is at half of the answers. My clients don't want to pay the fees is a quarter of the answers. And then split at, say, 30%, my clients have a good handle on their administration. I'm unsure why my clients have not hired a 316, and my clients already work with one. So again, kind of consistent responses from what we've been seeing. My clients don't know what a 316 is. So Jonathan, you talked about education. How do you educate your clients as it relates to, you've done a great job with 99% understanding the investment burdens. You've kind of clipped this broadly about the knowledge and the language and the time that the sponsors do and don't have. What do if you had a magic wand and could sprinkle it, what would be the magic that would come from that wand on this topic?
Yeah, I would say it becomes, Matt, simply repetition on the topic. A lot of times we'll cover it during, those RFP discussions. So when a plan's looking at alternative providers, or there's often been a problem, which is when the topic comes up, because it gets a little more difficult to take committee time to say, hey, let's spend 30 minutes talking about what a 316 is when everything seems to be running, just fine. Then you get a lot of blank stares from your business owners, like, why are we talking about this right now? So it often is tied to other bigger discussions around changes. So actually later today, I have a plan who their provider was acquired. So we're walking through a full RFP review, and one of the topics is going to be, here's options around the 316, dive in from that standpoint. And then from there, it's us taking time and explaining, here's the difference between full 316 and what our team deems as light. And it's one of those, we almost have to take a step back. I think John would probably agree with this too, is we're living this every day. Our clients are spending in these discussions a handful of hours per year. And sometimes I think our expectations that they remember our discussion from 6 months ago, 3 months ago, or even a year ago, sometimes is a little foolish on our end. So it becomes that just repetition. And sometimes, unless it becomes a problem, it's not going to stick. And that's understandable. I don't remember everything from discussions I have with, my vendor partners if I'm talking to them 2 times a year. So you need that refresher until it becomes an issue.
It's such an important point, where when it's your thing and you're just absorbed by it all the time, and you're passionate about it, you just assume that everyone has that same absorption and passion. It does take repetition, and I think that's why in like sports or anything else, we keep doing the play over and over and over. So when it comes to game time, it's rote. But John D'Agostino, I know that we've had this conversation a lot, and going back, over different career journeys on different topics, it's been the same thing about education. How are you dealing with this and working through this constant repetition of conversations and awareness and the benefits of fiduciary outsource from an administrative standpoint with your clients?
Yeah, the slide and the polling results are definitely in line in what I'm seeing across the advisor partners that I work with within the Midwest. And I think the two that I'd like to highlight with my experience is, my clients don't know what a 316 is. And I think that applies not only to plan sponsors, but I think that because of the complexity of offerings and solutions in the market, many of us who are purportedly the experts on this are still trying to discern the differences and are still trying to understand what the benefits are of hiring a true 316. And sometimes it's hard to even know if we have. And I also want to highlight something else, and it's the first one, where it's my clients don't want to pay the fees. I think that as an industry, we have added we have added this idea that a big part of value is helping sponsors reduce cost. And while I believe that that is true, because to be as cost effective as possible while receiving benefit, of course, is a prudent thing to do as a fiduciary. In this particular situation, we are asking the client to pay more. And if you're a plan sponsor and you believe that your plan is running smoothly, why would you pay for something that you don't believe you need? And even secondly, as an advisor, maybe it's uncomfortable, to bring up a conversation about increasing fees when we have done such a consistent job of showing them that we can reduce them. So that conversation may be uncomfortable for a lot of folks to have. And the point that I want to go back to that I just mentioned is my clients think their plans are running smoothly. If you take all of the data that we have seen so far, in the last 26 minutes, we have spending some time on this on a weekly basis. For some of us, 2, 4, 5 hours. My clients have a lot of confusion around the complexities of managing a plan, yet they probably think their plans are running okay, and they don't even know what a 316 is. So to me, I see opportunity. Because if I'm a financial advisor or a plan consultant and I'm handling all of those things that I just mentioned, I see an opportunity to bring a best practice to plan sponsors. Because by bringing that best practice and acting in a capacity to show them that there are ways to not only alleviate the responsibility, alleviate the time constraints, and open up time for me as an advisor to provide different types of services, maybe giving plans ideas around providing great outcomes for those folks investing in them. It's a win-win-win across the board. So, I believe that these conversations are happening. And in the 2.5 years that I've been at Pentegra, they are happening on a much more frequent basis. I'm not the only one, let's say, bringing these things up across the country. I'm getting asked questions around it. So directionally, I think we're doing a good job. And like anything, it's going to take some time. So why don't we move past the polling question here and look at what some of the challenges clients discussed in our study when we asked advisors these questions.
Understanding their responsibilities, making time, ensuring tasks are completed on a daily basis, staying on top of regulations, keeping plans in compliance. I mean, this is the day-to-day. This is happening all the time. And to your point about value, it reminds me of that old saying, in the absence of value, price has meaning. So if you make it all about price, you might sometimes be missing the value. And in one of my conversations with a kind of legend in our business from an advisory standpoint, over lunch, he laughed. He said, "You just made my day." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, my job as a trusted advisor is always to bring great ideas forward to my clients. When you think about it, I'm on a retainer. My job as a trusted advisor can't just be, it's all fixed and that's it. I'm always looking for ways to improve the outcome of my sponsor. And I'm like everybody else. I have not spent time on this subject. I figured other people are doing it. You just made my retainer." So I throw that out as an idea for all those advisors who have earned the most trusted position in the plan with the sponsor, and with many now with also the participants through all the work done in wealth management. This is another way to show you're constantly evolving the outcome of the plan. Why don't we, we're coming closer to our time here. I'd like to just kind of get into your case study in particular, Jonathan. But from an outsourcing standpoint, you clipped it in the front. Maybe you want to spend a little bit more time about the case study that you ran and how you're using it with your clients.
Yeah, Matt, I think I have kind of two good examples. One that touches on the fees. So one example, and this group's been working with a 316 for a couple of years now, but this is a small, mid-sized nonprofit, extremely tight budget-wise. So there's no extra cash laying on the sidelines. And they also have had a lot of turnover with their staff, not uncommon in nonprofits. And we brought up the concept of 316. We're maybe a little sheepish, to be honest, when we have the discussion, just for what John said, is we're talking about increasing costs for a nonprofit where fees are very tight. And their CFO looked at the numbers and said, this is an absolute no-brainer for our organization. That frankly caught me off guard a little. Then he expounded to say, with this minimal amount from his point of view that I'm paying for 316, it's a no-brainer with knowing my turnover at that staff. If I can even save an hour or two, which you can often save more with that on a 316, it was well worth the cost. And then he also looked at it as an insurance policy too. So that conversation a couple of years ago kind of helped reframe how I looked at 316 discussions, because I always looked and said, we're adding cost, and every dollar you add was, problematic. From their point of view, it was a lot cheaper than hiring someone even as a part-time admin. Another example I had was, this was a group, ton of turnover. Again, I think that can be a common theme where you get turnover in certain roles, and their providers had just completely dropped the ball. Their current third-party administrator and record keeper had not processed any distributions from the plan for over 10 months. And because they kept reaching out and were getting no responses from the client because those people had left. But since there was no skin in the game for the record keeper, they didn't really care about trying to follow up. So no distributions were being processed. This plan had been out of compliance. We're going to fail their compensation test, not offering eligibility. It was a complete disaster. Not a fun one to walk into as a new advisor. So it was one of the immediate discussions was, we got to make some changes here. You probably are going to keep turnover in this position. So for them, it was getting the 316 in the mix to help get things cleaned up going forward, get that risk mitigation. So those are two kind of good examples, the one from a couple of years ago, and then this one was just honestly within the past month or so, Matt.
Jonathan, so much of what we were talking about, it is reflected, and we've just pulled up the research here of there are real benefits, and everyone's so busy. We're really passionate about those benefits and those outcomes. Everybody's really busy. There's that disconnect that still exists. Meanwhile, the benefits are real and differentiating as it relates to putting plan sponsors in a more competent position, because when you really understand your fiduciary risk, it might be another reason there's a lot of turnover at the committee level. There's a good article today that I saw that was referencing high turnover of plan committees, which means not only is there an re-education necessary, but maybe some confusion what's going on at the plan. So when we asked what advantages does 316 fiduciary outsourcing offer your practice, the responses were very high as it related to a lot of different things, from reducing retirement plan administrative burdens and alleviating work for me and my clients, helping me and my clients mitigate retirement plan risk, saving me time. So time, money, and self-interest, they say, are three of the highest drivers of human need. And we're hitting all the markers, which is, to your points, and what John has shared as well. But, John, so you're out there every day talking to advisors, plan sponsors, working with our record-keeping partners, and you've seen this evolve over the last 2.5 years. Where do you see things a year from now?
Well, I see things continuously evolving. I think we as an industry will get more and more informed, as to the benefits of hiring a 316 fiduciary. I do also believe that the education around the nuances of the different offerings will become clearer and clearer. And I'll tee this story up because when I first joined Pentegra, prior to me joining, you know, I had a lot of friends in the industry, and I asked a couple of them, you know, man to man, friend to friend, tell me, do you think 316 has legs? Because you know, clearly as an individual joining an organization that is flexing its prowess and its legacy and its expertise in this, I wanted to see what the advisor community thought. And the answers I got were almost exactly the same across the board. Yes, I believe that there is benefit there, but there are a lot of smoke and mirror products. There are a lot of confusion around what the real benefits are. So that to me is just an opportunity. And some of the success stories that Jonathan just mentioned in those case studies really do go back to one of the comments I made before, which is simply, if you don't think you have a problem, then you're not going to look for a solution. And one of the statistics I know that, you know, I share with advisors, Matt, is that I know that there's a high number, and the number I've heard is somewhere in the 40% range, but 40% of the plans that we engage with, we find something. You know, we find something that they may have overlooked. Some of them are things that are easily amendable, and some of them are more significant challenges where we have to actually go to the Department of Labor or the IRS to make sure that this plan remains in compliance and there are no nasty letters that they may receive. So that not knowing is a thing, right? And the education component and having more success and having more experience, I think in time is going to lead to a higher adoption rate. And I'm extremely confident that at some point in the future, 316 is going to be as much of a best practice as 321 and 338.
It's an important point, and it also offers me a chance to brag a little bit about the organization. And I don't do that out of just trying to shill the company, but to me, this is what drove me to Pentegra. This is our 80th year of being a fiduciary. We were built by the Federal Home Loan Banks in the 40s to be their 330, what would become known under ERISA 30 years later, their 338 investment fiduciary, their 316 administrative fiduciary, and a defined benefit multiple employer plan. We're actually an owned asset within the plan. Talk about great foresight on the part of the Federal Home Loan Banks. And for us to just grow up as an independent fiduciary, that's all we do. No, it's all we do. And it's super exciting to be able, as an industry guy going in more decades than I'll admit, to go out every day and think about how do we help our advisor clients, our sponsor clients, our record keeping clients, create a better outcome for their plan sponsors who clearly from the research and the call today are very busy getting things done with their company, advisors who probably would rather be talking about the future of how to do things better, and everybody else that is involved in the retirement plan. So as we're coming to a closeout, and Jonathan, I'd just like to come back to you for a second. What do you see? Same question I asked for John. From your right with sponsors every day. How do you see this subject evolving over the next year?
Yeah, man, as I think through that, it just makes sense that over time, as from a business owner perspective, that it's all about minimizing risk. And it's kind of funny, we're turning these 401ks almost back into pension plans where we want to spend as little time possible dealing with it as we can, where, like we said, we made the big change on the investment side, moving everyone to fiduciary status. Getting to the 316 is something I think will continue to grow. I've told this story to prospects and clients before, where I've been doing 401ks for a long time. But if I jumped into the business owner shoes tomorrow, I would get 338 investment, 316, get me out of the day-to-day as much as possible, even though, yeah, I could run it myself. just wouldn't want to. There's no way I could stay on top of things, and just knowing the administrative pitfalls. I want somebody there where I can say, hey, if there's a problem, that's on you, 316 administrator. That's what I'm paying for. And there's something to be said for in the agreements, knowing you have that offload. It simply just isn't a benefit to mess around with from that compliance standpoint. So it's more to come. It'll be one of those, people will get more comfortable with what it means, the communication challenges, but I do see it growing over time.
Yeah, and should try to keep it simple for our plan sponsors. You know, when we are the named fiduciary from an administrative standpoint, we basically ask for three things or expectations on the sponsor, and that is they're responsible for their data, and that still remains a big deal in our industry, and we do everything to help support that and clean it up when we find errors in it. But ultimately, that is their responsibility. The second is they have to invest in a timely basis. Now, there's no real definition of that, but the industry kind of created that, and that's really not an issue in our business anymore. Even, you know, very sophisticated managed account portfolios are priced on a daily basis now. And the third is monitoring your fiduciary. And the fact that they have one is great. So why wouldn't they have one would be the other side. And then, you know, having that independence is significant. You don't want someone kind of grading their own work. So we're really excited about being able to support that. And, you know, as we're wrapping up, I want to just come back to the beginning. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking your time. Any last thoughts, comments, or suggestions you want to make for the audience?
Matt, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with that comment. It's keeping it simple. That's throughout our business where we get credit with our clients is by taking 401k jargon and converting it into English for them. Yeah, this essentially is an extension of that, where it's breaking it down in a way that they can easily digest it. That's how we move the ball forward with improving plans and improving participant outcomes. So I feel pretty strongly about that. The more we demystify things around 401k, the better it is for the end users.
For everybody, right? Yeah, taking the complex and making it simple. That's really a hallmark of what we're all trying to do. So again, thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time today. I'll turn it over to my colleague, John D'Agostino. John, any last thoughts, comments from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to to thank Jonathan as well. He and I go back probably 15 years or more, and we've shared the growing pains of this industry and a lot of the things that have come and gone. And I'm very grateful not only for his willingness to participate, but for his business, his partnership, and his friendship. He's been such a great advisor and such a great partner over the years. And I do believe that listening to his comments around his experiences with plan sponsors, that this isn't a fad, this isn't a trend, this is something that will become a table stakes. This will become a best practice for plan sponsors who truly, in my opinion, want to get the heck out of the way of managing their retirement plan. And this is one way to make it easier for them so they can get back to focusing, on their business. So thank you all, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Great. So thanks again, Jonathan. Really appreciate you spending your time with us today, and Mr. D'Agostino as well. And for all of us at Pentegra celebrating our 80th year as an independent fiduciary, thank you for spending your time with us today. We hope this was of value to you. We know there were some questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them. We'll get back to you directly. But if there were some questions you wanted to ask and you didn't have a chance to, or something struck you, please don't hesitate to reach out to your resources at Pentegra. We'll be reaching out to you as well. So thanks everybody for your time on 316 day 2023.